Welcome, everybody, to another Microsoft Unboxed pod. This is episode 81. We are in the second week of January. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by.
David Allen, hope everybody out there is doing well. And if you're in a cold area, I hope you're staying warm. If you're in a warm area, then I'm jealous. Please send me some warm air.
Yes, I, in Florida, am in a cold area for once. I'm going to say once that we've had a polar vortex hit us every so often in the last 5 years. Thank you, climate change. So I am in a hoodie yet again. Those of you who may be wondering, like, he's always in a hoodie. Well, I'm in a hoodie because it's cold outside and not just in my office normally. So that is what I'm doing today. But enough about me. This isn't a pod about me. This is a pod about Microsoft and Microsoft news. We're going to be talking about Apple launching Apple Creator Studio. I know it's not Microsoft, but it is tech related. And I'm sure my partner has some choice words for that. And we're going to let David off the leash on that one right off the bat, ladies and gentlemen. So get your cup of coffee, your beverage of choice, sit back and enjoy that. We're also going to be talking about Apple once again admitting defeat. We said it last week about the Apple credit card. They're doing so now when it comes to Siri and Google Gemini. We'll get into the details of that. Microsoft community first AI makeover. They are trying to what I think should be called the terms AI washing, where everyone's made this huge investment. Now they're all trying to justify it. And Microsoft has a 4-point plan on how they plan to make everyone enamored with AI. Again, they weren't off to a good start last week when Satya Nadella opened his mouth and now helped coin the term microslop because he wanted everyone to stop talking about AI slop. It was we'll talk about that too. It was another own goal by the company. So we'll see them moonwalking a little bit for AI. We're also going to be talking about Microsoft stock being down 10% because of AI. And interestingly enough, as they try to lead the way, we'll explain the details of why that's happening and how Microsoft seems a little bit unfazed by it. We'll also be talking about Meta laying off 1,000 workers and shutting down its VR studios. They have also had to backtrack and say, all right, remember that whole don't call us Facebook, we're Meta, we're grown up now, we're going to be chasing the Metaverse because that's the next big thing. Well, I think they're going to change their name probably in a couple months to just AI because that is what they're chasing next. We're also talking about Call of Duty sales collapsing about 60%. Those of you who are out there enjoying the game, don't even worry about this. This won't change necessarily much for you, but we're going to explain what it could change in the next couple iterations and why Bobby Kotick was like, thanks for the golden parachute. I'm out. I saw this coming. And then we're going to round up the podcast with EA Play and what we're going to be doing this weekend. Before we get started with any of that, we want to take some time. We're going to start try and get the section going every podcast to allow us, the host, to get something off our chest. And then in turn, you can also do the same. And maybe when we read your comments, we'll incorporate that into this section. What's kind of been bothering you about tech over the last week or 2 weeks now, because I don't think we did last week. David, go. What has been bothering you? It could be anything from your router not working to subscription services to more AI, or maybe even just spam calls or spam email overflowing.
Well, I think, and I'm gonna take the leash off here in just a minute. I'm kind of fed up with subscription services right now because, as we talked about at the end of last year, it was interesting when Canva came out with their new Canva subscription programs to fight with Adobe. And the very day that those subscriptions came out, I was given 2 months free of Adobe usage, Adobe Creative Cloud. I think you might have been too. It was something we had talked about. And, those are up for renewal for me. Adobe subscription renews this month. And I'm looking at the Adobe subscriptions. I'm looking at the options. I'm looking at the Canva options and, this Apple option that we're getting ready to discuss. And I'm like, okay, you look at Filmora, even, let's bring the smaller guys in. You look at Filmora and you look at some of the others, except for maybe DaVinci Resolve. Everybody is headed toward a subscription. Maybe not because of your software, but if you want all those AI goodies, you now have to pay for it. I understand that things have to be paid for, but we're getting to a place where everything is a subscription. Your TV is a subscription. Your streaming services are. Some you can pay yearly for and get a discount. Some you can't. And I'm just in a subscription burnout. I feel like, I open my bank statements every month and I'm like, subscription. Oh, I paid a power bill. Look at there. Subscriptions. Water bill. Oh, there's another subscription. And you're having to pick and choose what you want. And I think we've got bless me.
Bless you.
I think we've got a subscription bubble getting ready to burst.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I am also getting subscription fatigue. And again, we've talked about this over the course of 80 podcasts about why we were in here. For those of you who, again, maybe living under a rock or have just joined us for the podcast for the first time, we're here because line must go up. Companies realized and figured this out. I think, ironically, we can point to Salesforce back in the day, figuring out that if you pivot from offering what Microsoft used to, which is your one box paid service like Office or Windows, that if you turn to a subscription model, you can slowly turn the dial on customers so that line constantly goes up. And so Salesforce figured it out with their CRM tools, things like that, and turning it to a subscription model. Everyone else quickly followed suit. Apple has, we saw in their recent reporting that their software and services department has, cracked another milestone for them, because again, they figured out once we get you on Apple TV or Apple Music, Apple TV, these things where you don't own anything, but you get to use it, we can slowly turn the dial from $199 to $299 to $399 until 4 years later, you're paying $25, $30 because you don't own anything, but you need access to it because you've invested all this time, you've created playlists and all these other things. And if you turn it off, you lose it. So I'm hoping that we get back to more of an analog thing. And I know I am considered whatever gen I am. I know that I'm not one of the Zoomers. There are Zoomers, younger people who are becoming a little bit more analog as I read more and more stories. Now, again, we're not fully in that mode, and I don't know if they'll save us from ourselves, but they are becoming the kids who use wired headphones and realize that their phone, they just want to go outside and do things and not necessarily be tied to their phone as much. There's obviously a gradation of people who are still hooked to social media and things like that, but there is a small growing rebellion of people who are saying, hey, it's just too much. Maybe collecting records, even though they're more expensive, is a way to hone and craft your music so that we can all eventually jump off. I jumped off Spotify a while ago, but other people could. We can get off these streaming services by just saying, hey, we're just going to enjoy the one thing that we pay for as long as we can, and then move on to the next thing when we can afford to. That's my hope. That's my dream. My thing, I'm gonna make it short so we can get into the news, is that I am tired of not being able to talk to a person in customer service. I feel like we are losing that more and more every day. I was trying to unlock a phone the other day, and this is with AT&T, so I'm calling you guys out. It took me 10 minutes to get to an actual person. And, they get on the phone, they're like, hey, if your questions first the automated system comes on and asks, hey, what can I help you with? And I'm like, speak with a customer service rep. And they're like, oh, well, I can do this. Would you like me to do A, blah, 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 B, blah, 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 C, blah? I'm like, no, speak to a customer service rep. And they're like, all right, well, I need a little more information. And I'm like, speak to a customer, stop talking to me, weird robot person, just put the customer service person on. So they asked about 7 other questions before they said they can get to me. And then they asked me, oh, would you like me to have the customer service rep text you in a chat? I'm like, nope, I'm not falling for that. I know it's AI and it's a robot and it's you. And they're like, well, our customer service reps are all busy at the moment. Every time I'm like, if I can't get to a person, I know other people aren't getting to a person. How is this customer service rep that busy? Or do you just not have that many? Or is this just a way to make sure that I get tired and just give up and be like, you know what, fine, robot, you take over. And most of the options were none of the things I needed. I kept asking, like, I need to unlock a phone, so which means I need to speak to somebody to tell them what the code is, so that I can confirm that the phone is unlocked. Because if I give it to you, you might say, hey, here's a text message, and follow up with an email to verify. And I'm like, no, if I just speak to a person and they walk me through it and I walk them through this whole process, we can be done in less than 2 minutes, which again, when I got to the person, lovely individual. The gentleman was amazing. We got it done in less than 2 minutes. Like I said, he and I even had a conversation afterwards because, they're also part sales rep where he was trying to upsell me on 2 more plans. And I joked about, how, my wife would kill me if I got any more lines. So it was fun and it was enjoyable. And I know it's not the case for everybody. And I know there are introverts who don't want to speak to anybody, but as an old person, I just want to talk to somebody. That is my rant.
Went through a similar thing a couple months ago with Verizon just to get a line cut off. They're like, why do you want to cut it off? I'm like, it doesn't matter. Just to give people some insight, it was my dad's line. So I was, getting rid of it. And they're like, why do you want to cut it off? And, they kept pushing, well, we can discount it. We can do this. We can turn it upside down and flip it over and put it on your bill 6 months later. They're doing everything they can to keep that line. I finally just had to tell the nice lady, look, it was my father's line. He passed away and it's no longer needed. And when that happened, it was like everything deflated. She was like, oh my gosh, I have tried to get this guy to keep a line. And I'm like, yeah, if you had just listened to my repeated statements of just want to cancel a line after it took me 20 minutes to get to you, we're 40 minutes in and all I want to do is cancel a line, and I should be able to cancel the line in the app without having to, when I click cancel, I understand, ask me a couple times to confirm it. I get that. Mistakes happen, but after you ask me a few times in the app to confirm that I want to cancel the line, that should be it. It shouldn't get to the end and say, we're sorry. We would like to keep your business. Please call to cancel this line, and then put you through 20 more minutes of stuff.
Dang it, David. What didn't you just hear about in our opening part of this podcast? Line must go up. And when you cancel a line, their line goes down. It is like what are you, un-American? Line must go up at all costs.
Well, I'm sorry.
With that being said, we're going to get into the news, ladies. I want to thank you guys for tolerating our nonsense this beginning of the podcast. Here's your news. Every once in a while, the tech industry hits a week where every major story line feels like it's, trying to out chaos the last one. We had some crazy stuff last week. But this week, like I said, we are in the area where everyone's kind of quietly saying we made a mistake. And the first person we're going to put on the chopping block is Apple, which they are launching. Yes, they're launching the Apple Creator Studio. This isn't necessarily, I guess it is kind of a retreat because they used to offer these things as, just one-time options, right? Like you pay for whatever piece of software it is, and that's all you had to do. But it looks like they're saying, hey, you know what, everybody, we made the mistake. Line must go up. Here's our way to do it. What are your thoughts? Because I know this is a story you wanted to touch upon.
I'm going to do a little more and touch it. I'm going to get upset with it a little bit here because, I get it. Let me break down first what it is for everybody. Let's kind of give it the high level breakdown. Apple Creator Studio. I'm just going to give you guys 5 seconds to process those 3 words. Apple Creator Studio is Apple's subscription option that starts January 28th. So that's not next week, week after next. Starts week after next, $12.99 a month or $129 per year. It gets you the Apple Creative apps. Now, when I say that, you get Final Cut Pro, Apple Motion, you get Logic, you get the GarageBand, you get the Apple version of Pixelmator, that is iPad, I do believe, Pixelmator Pro that they recently purchased. And you also get the Office suite that they offer, which is, what is the name of that thing? Apple.
Is it iWork or
Keynote? Yeah, it's Keynote, and then let me look.
What is their Apple suite called?
Yeah, it was on the tip of my tongue. Let's see. You get Keynote numbers and pages. There we go. Keynote numbers and pages. Sorry about that. Well, let me just kind of ease
you're right.
let me ease my way into this rant. I get it. Somebody sitting in a meeting room somewhere said, "Hey, we need to make up a little bit of money over here." So somebody else said, "Well, why don't we just make a creative suite, throw it out there? $12.99 a month, $129. Oh, that sounds like a great idea." Yeah, people will subscribe to that. Then let's think about that for a minute. If you're a new creator, I get it. You're going to spend lots of money on your Apple device, your Mac Mini, your Studio, your MacBook, whatever. You're going to spend lots of money. And by the time your bank account is drained at the cash register for buying into the Apple ecosystem, that $12.99 or that $129 a year looks pretty good if you're a creator and you want to get your Final Cut, which is usually the reason creators buy the Mac laptops and the Mac desktops to begin with. They want that Final Cut Pro that they've heard so much about, and they want to use that to do their creative work. I get it. But take a look at what Final Cut Pro is. Great linear video editor, great non-linear video editor. The AI options are missing. It's just MIA. You get a few things with creating a mask for putting in a background and a few other small items. You've got nothing there like Canva or the Creative Cloud Pro, to pull in other assets, to create other assets, to create things on the fly. Maybe that's why it's so cheap compared to Creative Cloud. I get it. But eventually what's going to happen here is this, because Apple has said, we're not going to stop individual sales of these products, meaning you can give Apple $2.99 and get a copy of Final Cut Pro and never pay for it again. They didn't tell you what the rest of the story is likely to be. The same thing Adobe went through. Does everybody remember Adobe CS6? Adobe Creative Studio, I believe it was CS6. When Creative Cloud come out, they said you can still buy CS6. Can you buy CS6 now? No. So what's going to happen here? Apple's going to say, well, we've got millions of people out there using Final Cut Pro and they've paid $2.99 for it. But we need to milk some more money out of them. So we're just going to start adding our new features to our Creative Studio products. And the only way you're going to get those new features is, guess what? You're going to be told to subscribe to Creator Studio. Well, great. Another subscription, just like we started the podcast.
Full circle.
But guess what? Guess what happens here? You end up paying for two subscriptions in a lot of cases because of the lack of features or the lack of crossover of features. You need Adobe Creative Cloud for this over here. You need Final Cut Pro for this over here. And suddenly our YouTubers, our Instagrammers, our TikToks, people like ourselves that have got these side hustles that don't generate any money, or if they generate money, maybe it's not a lot, putting out $50, $60, $75 a month just to be a creative. Well, guess what that's going to do to the independent creator? They're going to stop creating. I don't like the thought of people stopping creating because corporate America has stepped in and said, look, the entry level to be a solid creator is X. If you can't do X, then do the best you can. I get it, Apple. I get what you're doing. I get that you're making it look good. But I want to visit this story 6 months from now, a year from now, and you tell me if it's still $12.99 a month, $129 a year. And if I can still buy my copy of Final Cut Pro standalone for $2.99 and never give Apple another dime for Final Cut Pro. I'd be willing to bet money that I don't have that we're not there next year. By next year, your Apple Creator Suite is a part of your Apple One, and it's bundled all nicely there together, and it's called Apple One Creative or whatever nice name they want to put on it. Well, you have to opt in for the protection for your device. You have to opt into the iCloud Plus subscriptions. You get it. They just want to drive that subscription cost higher. I don't like it. Doesn't smell good. Doesn't look good. I'm done.
Yeah, I'll keep it short because I let you run long on that one. But I'm going to play a little devil's advocate for Apple. I know everybody hate comments down below, but I see this as, and this is part optimism for the creative spirit, that they are seeing that they are probably mostly being used in more professional settings or semi-professional. You're not the individual creator like you or myself who are doing. I think a lot of those people, and you can see them on YouTube, a lot of these people are using like DaVinci Resolve, or maybe a mix of Canva and Adobe or CapCut or Filmora. I think, and a lot of people are doing, perhaps live streaming / software services like, we use StreamYard, they're using that. So I think what Apple's seeing is that there's been a decline in the amount of individual people that are signing up for Final Cut, but professionals that are, perhaps in Pixar or movie studios or anything like that are using it. And if they can get them from purchasing, because again, they will both purchase one license and then use it for 7 to 10 years. What they're trying to do is turn those people into subscriptions. Meanwhile, everyone else, and again, I say this as a creative spirit, people will create, they won't stop, but they'll figure out new and inventive ways, which is why we had the boom of TikTok and videos where, you have a TikTok creator who basically will take a video that's already been created, superimpose themselves on it and explain in detail about the video or create other ways. They're using their phone. Like I said, they're using CapCut. They're using tools that aren't Apple, that aren't super professional, but they're still creating content that millions of people are watching, people will pay for. It doesn't have to be run through Adobe or run through Final Cut. These are things that are just happening on the phone, happening on the tablet really quickly, and still produce content that produces money for that person. I think Apple's saying like, hey, we're not necessarily losing the creative war as far as people using Final Cut. And yes, people use our laptops to create stuff and hone the stuff that they do create. But I think the services for Final Cut are probably down, and they're saying, hey, here's a way to make the line, continue to keep the line going up versus flat or down. So that's my small little rant. We're going to move on to Apple handing over Siri to Google Gemini. This is another one I think you picked up. We can both jump in on this one though, but I'm gonna let you start off. What are your thoughts on Apple saying, you know what, Siri is still a laughing matter. We're moving on to this.
This doesn't surprise me. I think everybody saw it coming. I think the surprise is more along the lines of Apple and Google actually signing a truce and shaking hands and agreeing to work together. So Apple has officially confirmed what many suggested might happen when Tim Cook started using the phrase AI partnership ecosystem. And as you put in your post, with a straight face, Siri is getting another brain transplant. I like your term there. So basically what we're saying is Siri is behind, and Siri has always been behind. So Apple had originally said, oh, we're going to build our own AI models. We're going to make Siri this, and Siri's going to be great at AI. Then they realized, look at Satya Nadella over there spending all that Microsoft money. Look at Google over there spending all that Google money to develop these models. Do we really want to spend that money? Do we really want to compete in this space? Do we need to compete in this space? Need might be the better question. I don't think we want to spend that millions and billions of dollars. So what we're going to do is, we like the way Gemini works. So we're just going to step over there and we're going to knock on the door at Google Plaza, and say, hey, how much is it going to cost us to put Google Gemini in the Apple iPhone for Siri? And I'm assuming Macs would also follow that. Oh, that's it? That's the number? Yeah, let's do that. Because now we don't have to worry about educating Siri. We've already got this nice library that we can pull from. Now, what we'll do is we'll get our programmers in there and they will make it all sound all personal and, comfy for the ecosystem for our folks on these iPhones, like things to sound comfy and pleasant. And we don't have to develop our own models. We don't have to worry about getting caught scraping content. We don't have to worry about accessing content that maybe we don't need to be accessing, or maybe we should be asking permission to do.
Permission's for losers.
We give up. We give up. We don't need a language model, Google. We'll just use yours. Sounds good.
Yeah, I remember when they announced AI, Apple Intelligence.
Yep.
To their credit, they did say that they would use multiple language models. They opened it with OpenAI. That was the first out of the gate. It was a partnership that was supposed to float OpenAI a little bit more and lend it some of the prestige from being on Apple's platform. It seems that now that time is matured, and this was, I think, last year. It's only been a year since they announced that Apple has gone with the tried and true. And what's actually returning the fastest? Google's Gemini is outpacing both OpenAI, Anthropic, and whatever cudgel that Microsoft is using to put together everything in its own small language models. It's beating Amazon. It's beating Salesforce. It's maturing the fastest out of all of them. Apple already has a partnership with Google when it comes to search. This only makes sense for their business model, especially with internal reports that Apple can't figure out necessarily their own small language models or large language models, at least not in a timely manner. Who knows? And given this, if AI lasts 5-10 years as a product service that people want, I'm assuming they will eventually come up with their own, like they did at Apple Maps, and pivot from that. But in the meantime, as people are getting used to certain use case scenarios for their devices, Apple needs a solution. This is the easiest, fastest, and the one that makes the most sense for them. I don't begrudge them. I do mock them a little bit because, again, this is a continuation of an idea that most of us had in the tech industry, that Apple may be out of good ideas. Now, not to say that their software is bad or their hardware is garbage. It's just the idea of them being the innovators when it comes to the iPad, the iPhone, certain software services on the Mac. I think they're just a company. They're a utility, just like every other company now, and they're incrementally looking for ways to make money by offering us incremental advancements in tech that's already existed. So again, it's kind of the idea that, hey, we couldn't do it on our own. Google take over. And I think they chose the best partner out of all this, unlike Microsoft, who chose, and they couldn't choose Google because for obvious reasons, competitors, but they chose OpenAI. And OpenAI is it's a bonfire of money. That's what it is for them. And I don't know if their path forward is as clear as Google's. Not saying that they can't get there, but Google pretty much has a homegrown, clear path to victory. They are marching on it very quickly, whereas Microsoft's looking at its own small language models, including Anthropic, hoping that OpenAI hits another big advancement. Their pathway is a snake right now. So unless you have some closing words, we'll move on to our next topic.
I was just going to say, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because AI with everybody else, just to keep this short, Copilot, Gemini, et cetera, is so far ahead of where Apple is. If AI stays relevant, I don't know that they would ever catch up. And maybe Apple, they always seem to have the crystal ball at times. They're always late to the party, but when they arrive at the party, they arrive with a bang and they usually get it right, aka folding phones that people have been asking for the past few years. When they arrive, they'll get it right. And Apple may be foreshadowing that AI in its current form isn't going to survive long term. So for now, to your point, they're going to partner with someone, and maybe if we get fooled and it goes long term, we will develop our model later.
Definitely. Our next topic is Microsoft and its community first makeover, first AI makeover. We're still on the topic of AI. I know people are probably washing their ears out and rolling their eyes, but we got a couple more stories. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but this is what the industry is talking about, and until that bubble bursts, we're going to keep covering it. But we're going to cover it our own way, which is skepticism, and I think many of you might be following suit. Microsoft unveiled a 5-pillar plan to make its rapid AI data center expansion appear more community-oriented. We talked about this last podcast last week about Microsoft partnering with a community grid, electrical grid, in order to help update its infrastructure, but also siphon off the electricity for its own uses. They sold it as a win-win. I sold it as a win-loss for the community, for state regulation of its own electrical grid and AI regulations in the future. This 5-pillar plan seems to be a marketing way of saying, hey, I know we're going to be sucking up all the electricity and perhaps poisoning the water, but we're doing it for you guys. The focus areas include energy responsibility, water stewardship, job creation, fair taxation, and AI education. A lot of these expand into essentially saying that we're going to have transparency on the amount of electricity that we take versus the amount of electricity or electrical grid maintenance that we offer. Water stewardship, as we mentioned, that water is going to be sucked up into these server areas and then reused. That's kind of their way of stewarding it. Job creation, that's how you get people to buy in by saying, hey, building these data centers will create jobs. Unfortunately, they're only temporary. And then this is where the fair taxation and AI education come into place. They're saying, for all the stuff that we're building and using, we will expend we will pay the taxes on it. Who knows if they find loopholes to get out of that. And the education part is to help create jobs that are long lasting, that center around education. Now, again, I don't know if they're going to be able to, the idea of AI, at least as many have been sold and many CEOs are talking behind our backs, is that it's going to take away jobs and make line go up by getting rid of employees who make line go down. So it's weird that they're using doublespeak. Microsoft acknowledged the massive energy demands of AI. It cites projects that U.S. data centers, electricity grids could triple. So they're admitting could triple by 2035, and they're already, costing us in communities, raising our electrical costs by 2 to 10%, depending on where you live at. The company promises not to raise local electricity costs, although it depends on the special industrial rates and structures around these projects. Plans to add 7.9 gigawatts of new power generation in the Midwest, where, again, they just recently partnered with. Water usage remains a concern for the communities, because especially for those who are in drought-prone regions. And again, with advancing climate change, I don't know how they're going to generate more water for water-strapped areas. And again, we already talked about job creation relies heavily on public-funded apprenticeship programs. So they could start, offering courses for AI prompt, commanders and whatnot, but without the community saying we need them, what does any of that mean? What are your thoughts on this?
That's why I was looking off in a different direction. I'm thinking it through. I think we're at the point to where the public outcry is going to be great. I already hear it here where I am, because I am close to some of our larger companies. Some of our larger data centers are about 35, 40 minutes away from me. And we have already had several news stories on our local news about, we don't want data centers. We've even seen some protests. We don't want data centers. And it kind of reminds me of something that AT&T and some of the major phone carriers went through several years ago, when everybody was wanting that fast internet, when everybody was wanting that fast UVerse. What did AT&T go out and do? They went out and they put up cabinets, everywhere to deploy UVerse. And then the public came back and said, those cabinets are ugly. We really don't want those in our neighborhood. And AT&T kind of looked back and said, but you asked for, yeah, but we wanted you to make it pretty. We wanted it to blend in, and that's exactly where my brain went while you were talking about this, because this happened a lot in this neighborhood that I'm in. There's going to have to be some sort of acceptance, and I think the companies that want to deploy these data centers, that want to, put AI in these data centers, it's going to drive the cost of Copilot up. It's going to drive the cost of your Google subscription up. But we've got to take responsibility for the usage. And we've also got to find a way to appease the people that live around these data centers. So does Microsoft build a data center? I'm just going to call out an area here. Does Microsoft build a data center in Tampa, Florida somewhere? And they absorb the cost for that data center. The power does not go up to the citizens of Tampa because Microsoft absorbed the cost of that data center. But while you're there polluting the air that the people in Tampa breathe, you're doing something to contribute to the community. You're doing something to lower taxes. You're doing something to make it easy. Because if you continue to make it hard, having AI in general will be very challenging to do. Because it's just like the AT&T Uverse cabinets. You've got to have that high-speed internet, so let us put a cabinet down. Eventually, the arguments just stopped. AT&T never went back and decorated any cabinets. They never went back and painted any cabinets. The argument just stopped because people realized, oh, we need this. Put up more cabinets. And that's how it ended, because people realized they needed it. So maybe Microsoft, Google, etc., need to do a better job of explaining AI to people and going, yeah, you need this. This is why. This is why we're building these data centers. This is why we're upping the usage on the power grid that you're paying for. Because when people don't understand what they're paying for and why they need it or why they don't, that's when that anger starts.
Yeah, I think a lot of these companies, and I'll kind of end on this, are on the back foot when it comes to AI, because at least with internet and phones, especially with smartphones and like you said, internet infrastructure and bandwidth, there was an immediate need being fulfilled, and that especially for rural areas, that shortens the length and the amount of time it takes for people to be connected. So if you're someone in a rural area and you have to go to the bank in order to deposit your work check, having internet and having a phone that can take a picture of your checking account shortens that trip. If the trip is 30 minutes to get into town, you no longer need to waste that 30 minutes. You can go dedicate to finish washing your clothes, drying your clothes, washing dishes, playing with the kids, whatnot. That was something people intuitively figured out when they said, I need a phone, but I need my phone to be connected to other things so that it makes my life easier. Having AI doesn't necessarily connect everybody. It almost isolates us in some regards, and we can link off to stories about that. But there's no immediate, like, when I get this thing, I can start doing other things to make my life easier. It's only so far made the lives of CEOs and executives easier by firing people. And until they can figure out a way, until someone comes up with a more intuitive way to make AI necessary, they're going to keep fighting these battles, and people are going to keep scratching their head going, I don't really need this, and I don't need you in my backyard with this giant building that's taking up, what used to be, maybe a walkway or a path or where I go hunting or whatever. So good luck to them. I don't see it lasting very long. And pivoting to our next story, this is partly why our next story actually has the title that it has. It's because we're going to be covering Microsoft stock dropping 10%. In large part due to AI. When they were just cloud-based, here is a way to use the cloud, store stuff on the cloud, manage things in various areas through the cloud. They were line go up. They were, every quarter you couldn't stop them. But now that they've pivoted to AI, the line's been a little bit more rocky. Investors are concerned about the scale of Microsoft's AI-related capital expenditures, They also feel like AI hype is cooling and revenue gains have not yet matched the level of spending. Google's renewed momentum with Gemini. Again, Microsoft has famously touted, we wanted to make Google dance. Well, now Google's tap dancing all over their back, and they may have. It's one of those "be careful what you wish for" situations. Now that you've awakened the dragon, they are running off with it, and it's making creative, competitive pressure for Microsoft because, again, they're dependent on OpenAI and how fast OpenAI can produce things to keep up with Google. And while Microsoft, turning money like coal into a steam engine, OpenAI can only do so much at the scale that it's at versus Google, which has, we mentioned earlier, all of mobile and all of desktop mostly, and all of IoT in order to make its language models faster, more efficient. It has the entire internet to gobble that up, and now it has the entire marketing aspect for the internet with Google Ads and things like that. So it's going to be hard for other companies to end around Google. And the last thing is that Azure continues to grow, but margins are tightening due to infrastructure costs. Again, when you are using a lot of your cloud in order to power AI, you're pushing out some of the stuff that other people need the cloud for, and everyone else is kind of doing soup. So now your prices, because everyone's offering a very similar service, are now having to come down. You can no longer be, I'm the top dog. There's only 3 places, essentially 2, where you can go to, which is AWS, Microsoft, and Google. Now that everyone's kind of offering the same sort of things, all those people are having to lower the prices in order to compete, saying, all right, I know you can go to AWS and get a very similar service, but what if I offered it for $5 less? And now Amazon saying, all right, what if I offered it for $7 less? And now your margins are starting to be played around with. What are your thoughts on Microsoft stock dropping? Again, 10% is a lot for a company that it was almost
$1 trillion company.
A $1 trillion company, yeah.
It's a race to the bottom, just kind of like internet services is slowly becoming to be. We are supposedly getting spectrum in our area here over the next few months. They have been laying fiber in the neighborhood, and that's what popped in my brain when you mentioned that. So I went and looked at some of their prices, and you get like a gig for $70, half a gig for $40. And sometimes when things get competitive, it's a race to the bottom, and you have to let something go. Whether it's customer service, whether it's quality of servers in this case, whether it's quality of network, whether it's some type of paywall limitation, like your cell phone company throttles your data after so much usage. But it will be a race to the bottom because people have figured out for now, let me say that differently. For now, they have figured out what they need, and they're going to go to the most inexpensive provider to get it. That's just what's going to happen. If Microsoft is that inexpensive provider, then Microsoft gets the business. If AWS is that most inexpensive provider, they get the business. Same for Google. And people don't care as much now what label is stuck on the product as much as does it do what I need it to do, and is it the most efficient and most cost effective. And Microsoft is going to have to figure out how to make their stuff appealing, how to make it cost effective, and most of all, how to make it easy to use. Because just like my buddy here, we listen to conferences like Build. We hear things like Fabric and, the programming lingo. I understand some of it. And hopefully most people in those audiences and watching, streaming like we are understanding it as well. But if you were to come to me right now and say, what does Microsoft offer in AI? I'm going to point right at Copilot and go, okay, they've got several products that integrate with Copilot, such as Office, Microsoft Designer, etc. But that's all I know about. I don't know how to use any of it. I don't know that I need it. Maybe I do, but I don't know about it. So I think we've all got to do better at making it more transparent, making it easier to understand. And Microsoft has got to say, hey, our product is best. This is why. and this is what it can do for you. And I think it's a combination of the overall AI problem, both consumer and business. AI, what is it? Go ask the average consumer what it is. It's a glorified search engine. Do you know how many times I have heard that? It's a glorified search engine. So why do I need it? I just go to Google. We've got to change the AI narrative for all this to work out.
I agree. One other thing that should be noted is that investors are also concerned about Microsoft's capital expenditures. They are exploding. Yeah. Microsoft is investing tens of billions per quarter for data centers, GPUs, energy infrastructure. As you know, they laid out this whole plan to kind of own data centers and be friends with the community. I see this as, and again, I think that's the largest part, is that Microsoft would be fine if it did what Apple was necessarily doing, where it just partnered with OpenAI and said, you do all the heavy lifting. You know, Apple's not investing in data centers necessarily. They're saying, Google, you've already done all that investment. Here's $30 to $80 billion. You know, keep doing whatever you need to, but you use your own money to do it. And we're just paying you to use your services. Microsoft is doing both. It's saying, here, OpenAI, build us something or keep building us something, and we'll build our own on top of that. And so it is, again, we've talked about the AI bubble, but I also see this as Satya Nadella's Ballmer moment. We don't talk about that. We talk about how great he's been for the company and how the stocks have rise and how it's a triple or $1 trillion company. But he's about to get into an area where it is going to be bubble or burst. And fortunately for Ballmer, he had a lot of small ones. Now, he had a lot of misses. They are relatively small. Yeah, this is relatively small compared to this AI one. Microsoft invested $40 billion into its smartphone company. Probably even more than that by the time we're done with it. If we had to do everything, but it was $40 billion to buy the Lumia brand and bring it from Nokia and make smartphones. And it was a colossal bust. If we added up everything over the end of the time, it could have been $140 billion by the time everything was all said and done. And it was a huge failure for them. Big black mark for them as far as consumers are concerned. Microsoft invested, I think it was, 12 to 13 billion initially for OpenAI. They've already dedicated the next 80 billion over the next 2 years. They're also building data centers and infrastructure. I think by the time they're done with this, they'll have a much bigger hole if AI is the next Windows phone or just, whatever that next market is. Remember, Ballmer invested in the Zoom technology. That was a bust, but it was relatively small. And at the time, there was at least a need to compete for, small media players before the iPhone took off the way that it did. There were these small things that Ballmer failed at, but he tried to. And I think this is one big thing that's going to leave just as big a black eye, if not bigger, for him. So we'll see how he recovers if this does burst, or if he ends up being the savior, as everyone keeps hailing him to be. But it seems like with every new quarter report, we're starting to hear, we're starting to see the armor be chipped away at. Enough harping on him about that. We're going to move on to Meta, which is going to be laying off. I'm sure that, what is that, 1,000 workers?
1,000 people?
Yes, as it shuts down its VR. And VR was critical to its Metaverse. Those of you who have been following us for a quick minute realize that we reported on the Metaverse about, was that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, however long we've been calling Facebook Meta now. And they changed their entire branding for this. They went from Facebook to Meta because the Metaverse was where it's at. So they'll probably change their name to AI by the summer because that's where they're moving to now. Meta laid off around, AI book. There we go. Or Meta AI, Meta AI book, Face AI. There you go. The entire VR studios were shut down, I believe, starting last week or so, including Armature, known for its Resident Evil VR, Twisted Pixel, and Sanzura games. Supernatural, the VR fitness app Meta acquired, will stop receiving new content as a sign that Meta is deprioritizing the VR experiences. Meta is redirecting billions into AI, including its superintelligence research lab and its massive investments in Scale AI. Internal tensions are rising for former AI chief Yan Li-chun, publicly accused Meta of fabricating benchmark results for its Llama 4, suggesting deeper instability. So she's basically saying, like, hey, you're going to get rid of my stuff. I'm going to crap all over what you guys are doing when it comes to AI. You're lying about it in order to justify getting rid of me. This marks a dramatic reversal from 2021. Again, when we said that, Meta was where it's going to be at. We had these legless conference rooms that everyone was supposed to be hanging out in with their headsets. It seems like they don't want that anymore. Now they want you to get cooking recipes within an instant on Meta's new AI solutions. What are your thoughts? Because I've also seen Meta trying to incorporate AI into Messenger and WhatsApp and a bunch of other things. But what are your thoughts on this huge pivot, this acknowledgement that, hey, VR and potentially AR aren't where it's at right now. AI is the only place to be.
I'm not surprised by this. And, as somebody that has 2 Meta headsets, Meta headsets,
only once.
Sitting to my left, makes me think, because there are some of us out there, such as myself, that have used it for simulators. And I believe there is a place for VR in the simulation world, but it's not for everybody. It's a niche. You can't build a $1 trillion business off a niche. And I think Meta has figured that out. They're like, okay, people didn't buy into turn your office meeting into a bunch of avatars dancing on your screen that may or may not look like you. They didn't want to do that. They didn't want to go into this metaverse and be characters during the business day. Oh, well, some people are anyway, but we'll move on. But they didn't want to do that. They want to save that for after work. So we built these products over here that nobody wants. Okay, so what's your obvious pivot here? The pivot is obvious to me. AI is big. Yes, AI is where it's at. Oh, we don't need Meta over here anymore. But is AI really where it's at? Or is that what Meta is using to get rid of things that they said that's the way we were going? So this move is a big deal, but I think their next move is the truth teller. Do they actually pivot to something with AI and run with it? Or does this metaverse thing fall away and we never hear about it again? And, they're like, just use Meta AI on Facebook, please, or in your Ray-Ban smart glasses that we built. Look at these Ray-Ban smart glasses we built. Make sure you use it over there. And we just won't talk about this anymore. And I think that may be something we do.
It should be noted too, at the bottom of this story, at the heart of this story, there's 1,000 people getting laid off. And I know it's easy for us to say 1,000, but if you stood in a crowd of 1,000 people, you'd realize that's a lot of people.
Yes.
That are going to be losing a job that specialized in something that they believed in, or at least knew that there was a paycheck for, and were sold that there was a future for this. So it's unfortunate to hear this story. Unfortunate that they were sold on, without any foresight, that no one had the foresight to be like, again, this is 3 years later, and we didn't even get anything really from the metaverse to begin with, other than a bunch of crap demos. So my heart goes out to those people who are losing their jobs. Hopefully they'll find something in the future, maybe in AI, and then they can lose their job in 5 years instead. But let's just keep them in our thoughts. Our last one is Call of Duty, and this one is for a job that should have been gone. This is essentially a Bobby Kotick story. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And if I'm not, who cares? I don't really care about this guy. The latest Call of Duty entry saw a 60% drop in sales. It's one of the steepest declines in franchise history. I've played the game back in the day. It's been a while since I played. But Bobby Kotick, now out of Activision, claims the collapse proves selling to Microsoft was the right move, essentially saying Activision couldn't have sustained itself alone. So he's inadvertently saying he saw this coming. I don't know what that means about him. Critics argue Kotick is rewriting history. Activision's stagnation happened under his leadership, and Microsoft now inherits the fallout. The decline raises questions about whether the annual release model is still viable. Franchise fatigue is real. Players are demanding innovation, not incremental updates. I think talked about this off mic, so I'll let you go on that in a second. Microsoft now faces a strategic decision to keep the yearly cadence or give the franchise room to reinvent itself. So maybe go 2 years without a game, 3 years, who knows? Game Pass integration could soften the blow, but it's also risk devaluing premium sales even further. So what do you think? First off, you play the game. Have you experienced this fatigue, and do you
Yes,
see why the 60% drop is in
yes,
sales?
absolutely see it. Um, I have been streaming a lot over the last few weeks just as a distraction and to have something to do. And some friends have gotten back together with me over the last few weeks, and we've had a good time. We have been playing Call of Duty Black Ops 7 pretty much exclusively. We have tried some of the other genre type games, Ready or Not, Insurgency Sandstorm, but mainly Black Ops 7. And I didn't play much of Black Ops 6. I played it enough to get figured out. I did play quite a bit of Call of Duty Cold War, which was now 2 to 3 years ago. And we were talking about it. In fact, it was just last night of how some of these Call of Duty games could simply be an $25, $30 add on, a DLC, if you will, for an existing game because the game doesn't feel or behave any different necessarily from one version to the other. Maybe, the maps change, the objectives move around. Maybe your character can jump across water. Maybe you swim underwater. But again, to your point, no innovation, no nothing new. No, hey, there's a tactical mode to this game. Go over here and play this multiplayer tactical mode, and you've got a completely different game than the running gun style, just on a different map. People are tired of that style of game, whether it be Call of Duty, whether it be Madden 26, whether it be NBA 2K26. Well, all you did was change the rosters and change the uniforms. Why didn't you just make that an update 2K25? Oh, you want that 70 more bucks out of me, so you can just change the uniforms and change the way the court looks and the sponsors on the logo. So you charge me another 70 bucks. I can tell you, as somebody that games, that is alienating your players big time. And I think that is why you're seeing things go down. We're not seeing the innovation in the games. We're not seeing the options we used to see. It used to be you could buy a video game and the next year you had better graphics to look forward to or new features that you knew were coming. We're tapped out on graphics, folks. We're at 4K. We're not at 4K 120 for every game, but our hardware, we're tapped out. And does a few frames on the screen make a difference for a lot of people? No. We've got to figure out what it is the new generation wants. And unfortunately, I don't think it's on a console. I think it's on a handheld. I think it's on a phone. I think it's on a tablet. Just walk around and see how people are interacting. Go to airports, see what's in their bag, see what they're carrying with them on vacation. That is how they're consuming their content. That is how they're getting their free time. That's what we've got to build around. It may not be the Xbox console and the Call of Duty game. Maybe you need to build around Call of Duty Mobile. Maybe that needs to be a better game. Maybe that needs to be more of a realistic style game. That may be a place to go, but I don't think these games right now are going down the right road for what gamers want.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. I don't know if there's a solution to this. This has been kind of laid at Microsoft's feet. I say laid at. They bought it. They knew what they were getting into. They've seen the numbers. They're gonna have to figure out a solution or take another black eye when it comes to their brand in gaming. I think if I had to, spitball some ideas, I think extending these things onto second screens. I know that this Call of Duty mobile, but it's plays separate entirely from the Call of Duty game.
Yeah.
And I don't think people want to. Then again, there are people who want to do shooters on the phone, but I think reinventing the idea of what you do with your phone that extends the gameplay from your console or from your handheld would be a benefit. If this is like kind of like what they did where Pokemon Go is a real world kind of mapping situation where you're interacting while you're being mobile. Perhaps you do that, you add some aspects of the game that involve your phone in where you're at in the environment you're at. So if you're, say you were playing Call of Duty, now you got to go catch a flight and you're at the airport, there are things that you can do that will go back to your achievements, go back into your game that you're playing on your console or on your handheld, but that are being done perhaps at the airport, perhaps at major landmarks, perhaps at just areas and, something of that nature that will say, hey, the reason why I'm paying 60, 70 bucks is because not only do I play the single player or multiplayer on my console, at my game station, on my handheld, but when I'm on mobile, when I'm on a tablet, perhaps even on a TV, whatever, I also get additional things that I don't necessarily have to pay extra for, but add to the experience. I don't know. Thinking outside the box here, well, ideally, there are some gamers who are still employed at the company who are thinking the same thing. We'll see what they come up with. But the idea that Bobby Kotick was saying that it's going to take Microsoft to keep us afloat, and now that they haven't bought, the sales aren't reflecting any of that. Like they didn't increase it. Just because they have more money doesn't mean they have better ideas. We're gonna have to see. They're gonna have to prove, like, hey, this purchase is justified. Maybe again they move from a yearly to 2 years or something like that, while they maintain its presence on Game Pass, and you can play it, in the off years for cheaper until they come up with something truly inventive and new. Maybe they couldn't do that with the current Activision, the way that they had it set. So maybe that's their saving grace. Maybe that'll buy them some time, but we'll keep you guys updated. Last but not least, we're still in the world of gaming. This is my buddy's favorite section. I'm gonna let him go with it.
I think it's one of my favorite sections, and I believe it's some of our readers' favorite section, because I had a few people ask me last week, David, you didn't do free play days last week.
Oh, they caught you.
Well, guess what? Microsoft didn't do one either, because I looked. I've got a screen here right below me. I looked during the podcast to see if maybe they could just put it up late, since it was a holiday, right after the holidays. There was not a free play days last week. So hopefully they have made it up this week. So here's what we have. If you're an EA player, this is your week. EA Sports has took over the weekly free play days for this week, January 15th through the 18th. You get a free limited time event where players can jump into any of the EA Sports games. So, for example, you've got EA Sports FC 26. You've got Madden 26. Let's see what else we have. We have College Football 26. We have NHL 26. You can try these games from Thursday, which was yesterday, January 15th, through Sunday, January the 18th. And additionally, F1 2025, UFC 5, and PGA Tour are available this weekend for Game Pass Ultimate, Premium, and Essential members to try during the free play days. So here's what we have. We got a few specials here. I always like to bring these up because if you like one of these games, during the free play days is the time to buy them. The specials are pretty good. So we've got EA Sports FC 26 Standard Edition is $27.99. That's down from $69.99. EA Sports Madden NFL 26, not so big of a discount there, a little surprising at the end of the season, $62.99. You've got EA Sports College Football 26, not much of a discount there at the end of the season, $62.99. You've got NHL 26, that is down to $27.99 from the $69.99. And the last couple here, F1 2025, $34.99. And UFC 3 is $62.99. Oh, I missed the last one. EA Sports PGA Tour, $10.49, down from $69.99. And since we were talking about some of the game updates, I'm going to kind of throw this out there. If you look through this, you see NHL 26, you see College Football 26, you see Madden 26, you see FC 26. Well, look at the reviews. 2-star, 3-star, 3-star, 2-star. If you go read those reviews, the complaint you're going to see, because I do read reviews on the Xbox dashboard. The complaint you're going to see is it's just like last year. It should have been a DLC. So it kind of reinforces the point that maybe all of these game providers need to think about what they're producing from year to year and maybe just do a DLC for a couple years. See how that changes things. Do they lose money? Do they gain money? Are things flat? Does DLCs work? Or do we just need to play the same game for 3 or 4 years until they come up with something new? So just something to think about while you're going through these games. Like I said, hope everybody enjoys them. It's the EA week. I've never seen all the EA games on special like this before. I think I'm going to go try a couple of them out myself. But that's it for free play days this week. You got anything else, my friend, before we roll in the weekend?
I do not. My team's Niners are still in the playoffs, so I don't feel a need to go out and buy Madden real quick or play Madden to relive a playoff scenario that I might have missed last week. But who knows? Maybe because their game is on Saturday. Maybe I'll be playing one of these games Sunday to recreate a win against the Seahawks that we didn't get on Saturday. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed that that's not the case. But just a little inside information for myself. What are you going to be doing this weekend, my friend? And where can people find you?
Well, I think I'm going to be doing the same thing as you. I know we texted about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. My dad and I were long, diehard 49er fans before we got the Carolina Panthers. We go all the way back to the Joe Montana, Steve Young days of the 49ers. So I'm kind of reliving those a little bit with you. Hoping the 49ers do well because there's nobody else in the playoffs that I'm interested in. And so I'm hoping the 49ers go all the way. But while I'm watching the 49ers game or during halftime, I'll have my Lenovo Legion Go in hand, probably trying out one of these games here that I mentioned. College football 26 will be on my list to try out. I'm interested to see if it's really any different than 2025. So it kind of stays with our stories here, but I want to see if that's any different. Going to be really cold this weekend, possible chance for a little bit of winter weather on Sunday, so I don't see myself getting out. I think it's going to be a football weekend. Pick up the hot chocolate, pick up the coffee, pick up the handheld. If you want to join me, feel free. I will be around. I will be probably signed into my Xbox app. That's David PAJ 1978 over on Blue Sky. I was not a part of the X outage this morning that made it across the news. I don't go over there, so I was not a part of that. But I didn't see anything about Blue Sky going down, so find me over there. My friend, what are you doing other than cheering your 49ers on this weekend?
Yeah, my daughters have a dance convention, so I'll be doing dance dad duties Saturday, Sunday, probably some cleaning, wash the cars, depending on how cold it is outside, to your point, or maybe just cleaning inside the house where it's nice and warm. But you can find me at Happy Hulk on Blue Sky. I managed it on Threads if you guys want to hang out there, and I will try and keep it light. I know the news has been pretty dark for some people these days, and we want to let those people know that we're thinking about them as well. If you can, go outside, cut some grass. If you can't, stay indoors and do something that's enjoyable for however long it needs to be. Again, if it's cooking, if it's drinking, if it's reading, if it's cleaning, if it's reading or listening to a book on tape, if it's watching a show that you need to catch up on, binging on something, going on social media and talking to other people, creating something, drawing something, playing some music, whatever it is, we encourage you to do it for as long as you can because we need a little bit of enjoyment these days. So with that being said, we will see you guys next week. Thank you for spending some time with us, and hopefully you will enjoy your time.
Thanks, folks. Have a good weekend. Have some fun.